Hello everyone, this is RaySpace and welcome back to Realism Overhaul Sandbox in Kerbal Space Program 1.12. In the previous video I tested out this lander for Mars and now it's time to try to send it there and go through the entire mission, though I will be omitting one part, which is getting the crew on and getting the crew off. And that's because aside from that part, everything goes on one launch. So we would launch the mission and then another launch would carry the crew up to it. It could be with Orion or something else, though we would need something that can go to a high orbit and come back from a high orbit. So we would send the crew separately, and then the crew would transfer in, do a transposition and docking actually. They have to flip this around. And then when they come back, there will be another launch to get them off of the ship. So we're not sending the Earth return vehicle along with them in this case. Well, we're sending the part that would bring them back to Earth SOI, just not bring them back to the surface, because that's extra mass that I really don't feel like we need to carry all the way to Mars. As long as they get into Earth SOI, we should be able to send a ship to rendezvous with them and bring them back. If we can't, we probably shouldn't be sending them to Mars in the first place. So that's my principle here. So other than the bit that gets them to this and then gets them back off of it, we have it all on one launch. And so this is the lander portion. This is the vehicle that they normally spend time in, though they can spend time in here as well. So that's their living space, and their supplies are in there as well. And then we have a propulsion module, and this is ions. You can tell I'm thrilled. But we've got the reactor hanging out here. Got radiators for the reactor. And otherwise, it's just ions all the way. It's xenon gas, nothing fancy with the oxygen or anything. We'll need 51 tons of xenon gas is what I'm going for here. That's basically a whole year's entire world supply of xenon gas. So probably accumulate that over a few years. With that, if we pull this off, we get 12,290 meters per second. Is that enough? That's a good question. I have no idea because of the way ion engine burns work, so we're going to have to see. I mainly sized it to be about 50 tons and I accepted a 10-day long burn. So what kind of rocket are we going to use for this if it's all going to go at once? We need something that can launch 140 tons to Mars direct. Well, not entirely direct, because we can use the ion engines to finish up the transfer to Mars, but we would like it to go to do a lot of the work to get to Mars, though we can't let it get outside of Earth SOI, because if we do, then the crew can't rendezvous with it, right? So it has to be hanging out in Earth SOI, and then the crew will rendezvous with it, probably pass by the radiation belts 2 times, and then head out. So what we have here is a combination of things. We have an upper stage here that is hydrolox, and it's using a high nozzle ratio 463 second ISP hydrolox engines. They give 360 kilonewtons. No engine like this currently exists exactly, but you could, I mean, it should be possible to make something like this. I just wish they did. So yeah, it's 4 of those. Or you could have a really nice J2X again. I don't know. That doesn't get quite the same ISP. This is basically a souped up RL-10. And then here we have 4 engines as well. And these are the methane, hydrogen, oxygen engines that I had introduced before. Probably we would want vacuum nozzle versions of them, but I don't have one of those cooked up. These are pretty high thrust. Oops. And 3,000 kilonewtons, so they're on that level, and 409 seconds of ISP in vacuum. The reason why we're using methane, hydrogen, oxygen engines, which seems like a complexity, is because otherwise we can't get the efficiency from the methane, but if we try to use pure hydrogen and oxygen, we would need more than a 9-meter tank, or it would get really, really, really tall. It's already pretty tall. So I didn't want to stretch it out. I didn't want to make it wider because that would make this whole thing look horrible. and so methane, hydrogen, oxygen was the best way to go. If we were going with a 12-meter rocket at the bottom, instead of, it is super heavy, instead of having super heavy at the bottom, if we had a 12-meter rocket, then we would probably just use hydrolocks. It would be easier. And so we have super heavy and not reusable. I'm going to expend it. And this is obviously not the way SpaceX intends to use it, but I'm probably not going to do anything that SpaceX intends to do. That would be boring. There's no point. I'm here to do other things that people haven't thought about. So here we are. We have not thought about using a tri-propellant second stage, have we? So yeah. And a pure ion engine thing at the top, well, except for the lander, of course. We do have the RCS here, MHM-3. I don't know if we have enough of that, but we have that. That's also a question mark, whether that's a good idea or not. Anyway, this is the Mars mission. We are at the Mars window. I need to make sure staging is not horrible. And as far as supplies are concerned, we have 4 people. And again, I'm not going to do the rendezvous launches in this case. We're just going to go ahead and we are going to launch this with the crew. So we shouldn't do that. But with 4 people, we have 3 years and 120 days of supplies. And actually, we don't need all that water. I thought I had rebalanced the water. Is it? How is it counting the water like that? Well, it's counting 19,000 water, but we only have 8,600. Even in here, we don't have that much. Anyway, the reason we don't have that is because I've got a water recycler here that will hopefully work. If it doesn't, I'll have to cheat somehow. But it's I only planned for it to be working at half efficiency. Alright, now let's go. Throttle up, SAS is on. Ignition, ignition, ignition. And go. The little animation didn't have enough time to do the filling up stuff. I'm in a hurry. Well, it's a fully loaded Super Heavy. Let's face it. They better not be losing any engines. Well, now it reads only 1 year and 240 days of water remaining, which is correct. Again, I said that we're going to be trusting that the recycler can basically have an efficiency of 50%. So now Tactile Support seems to be on board with what I thought we had. Maybe I should just redo Super Heavy with the tri-propellant engines. The tri-propellant engines would be staged combustion, operate at less chamber pressure than Raptors, so they might not fit perfectly, but maybe we should just have the 12-meter stage, then it might be better. But it's nice to show that this is a capability sort of within our grasp. You know, we don't need a larger rocket to do it, is basically the point of using Super Heavy right now. Alright, we're fully horizontal, and that's the end of Super Heavy. I don't need it trying to land at this point. That's what that would probably have done. Oh, there we go. And fairings. I just used a procedural tank that was hollow to make the back end here. So I had originally thought about using an NTP stage as well, a nuclear thermal propulsion stage, a small one. But it seemed like it would cut into what this hydrolock stage would do, but I might still restore it. It wasn't providing that much extra. The problem is, of course, any boil off on this stage, but then again, that would be true of the NTP stage as well. The issue and the reason why we want the NTP stage is to mitigate how much radiation the crew would have. So we get into a high orbit, and then we need to exit. So you sort of have to imagine this. First we get into an elongated orbit, not unlike this other stage here, but probably higher up. And then we do the rendezvous at periapsis. It goes around once, and then at periapsis again, it burns out to Mars. So after the rendezvous happens, we actually do the exit burn on the next orbit. The thing is that when we do the exit burn to Mars, we really needed to do it on that orbit, right? It can't be multiple orbits. And so the ion engines aren't super good for that. We need one stage to actually boost us out. Altogether, this is a very Saturn V-ish setup, in that we of course have to rely on this stage to complete orbit now. Okay, a little bit lopsided. How often have I said that? No, I'll just cut it there. So we are in orbit. We have a little bit less than what it would take to go to the moon, which is less than I wanted too. Let's plot it out and see whether this window is actually correct. We've gotten close to the specified longitude of ascending node. Oh, it's not too bad. It's workable. But we would need the ion engines to give us another 900 after the main burn. We can see how well or not well that will work out for us. Alright, well, this boost up has begun. It will not get us beyond the moon, so we're gonna have to go around, and then we'll have to see. It's all down to the ion engines again. Supplied as they are by a reactor. A small reactor, much smaller than a nuclear thermal propulsion engine would require. So there is that. It's so light, in fact, the reactor is, that I didn't even think we needed something to counterbalance it on the other side. And while we have a reactor here, we actually do have one in the lander as well over here. The one in the lander would be smaller than the one powering the ion engines. The one on the lander is just meant to power the in situ resource utilization unit and the drills. Okay, that is the end of that stage. So just a single burn like that, and let's get thrusters ready here. Those we don't need. We need to be careful about the RCS now, though. Okay. Well, that wouldn't be any good. Let me... Hopefully MechJeb can replot on this elongated orbit. Alright, well, I've thought about it a bit, and I don't think I'm going to be able to do 900 meters per second, or even whatever's necessary to get on escape in one go. So it's not going to meet my criteria, as it were. I've given it some time. As you can see, we're a little bit higher up here. But we're talking about a one-day burn, and that's going to take a few rounds considering our entire orbit's a day, and we can't burn through the entire orbit. That would require circling around, and probably we can only do about 2 hours at a time, which is not much. So I really want the stage before this, the hydrolock stage back there, to be able to do a little bit more, and especially get us on escape. That would be a better situation. So I think the easy way of getting a little bit more is to just use MechJeb's ascent guidance. This isn't a particularly complicated launch, and I don't think I did it the most effective way. Another way is maybe we can cut down on some of the delta V that we have in the Xenon stage, the ion stage, And that's because I just realized that we're counting 12,000 meters per second with the lander, but we're not going to be bringing the lander back. Certainly the HAB portion is going to stay on the surface, and probably the capsule is going to be dumped. I don't think we're going to keep it on the way back. They're just going to use this HAB for the way back. There'll probably be more room because they'll have eaten some of the supplies. So yeah, I think maybe I'll rebalance this a little bit and cut down on the ion engine propellant, and maybe I'll regret that later, but that's my idea. So I'll do that, and we'll use ascent guidance, and we'll see if I can get to orbit with more so that we don't have to do so much with the ions. I'm cutting this down to 130 tons, and we'll see how that goes. I could use higher utilization on this tank, but I don't think that's necessary. Okay, 15,000 without that pod, it looks like. So that's good. And then that messed up all the staging. So yeah, tons and tons of Delta V. Got some MLI layers there. Now a critical thing is whether we end up getting boil off on the tank in here. We've got all the MLI layers, but we really need to keep that. But really, to be honest, we could let some of it boil off. We're not planning to land with all of it. I've packed all of the fuel into this lander, but when we tested the lander, I was only expecting about 40%. So actually, a lot of it could boil off. It's just that we can't have all of it boil off. A lot of it could boil off because we're using the drills to get more once we get to the surface. I could probably just replace the Raptors with LE-13s or something. Well, we have a daylight launch, but we've got a cloud on top of us, and so it's really dark. So right over here is blocking the sun. All right. Well, I need to figure out ascent guidance. Target is unreachable even with infinite. Well, that's because it's reading the launch platform. Okay, this is not happening right. I'm gonna leave the launch platform off. It might be confusing it a bit. Okay, let's try this again. The cloud sure hasn't passed. And it's wiggling a bit. Engage. Alright, off it goes. We will see if this works. It's not even right now reading as much Delta V in the third stage as I want, but it seems to be reading the third stage incorrectly anyway. Hold on. Well, the third stage definitely has the hydrolox, but it's giving a burn time that's like ion engine burn time, so I don't know what's going on there. There's definitely the current stage, there's definitely the second stage, and there's the third stage, and the third stage is the hydrolox engines. Well, I hope we have more Delta V than that in that stage after making orbit. It's probably not reading that right, because I'm pretty sure that stage has more than 4,000, and if we're only using 1,000, only using 110, we should not have only that much left. And it's got target as unreachable even with infinite ISP right now, which seems to me indicating that things are not being calculated right. Which is strange, this is pretty straightforward actually. Well, at least we're through the cloud now. Well, it says stable guidance now, but it still hasn't fixed the numbers. Obviously, something is confusing MechJeb here. I don't know why. There's just a decoupler in the engines. But... Alright, staging. Right, we have to cancel KOS there. Oh, I guess it's counting this as another stage and then only getting 2,000 from the hydrolock stage? I don't know what's going on. Well, let me get rid of the fairings. That has not helped it. I hope it's not paying attention to these numbers. I don't know why those numbers are like that. Maybe reset guidance? Okay, reset guidance helps. There's a time for reset guidance apparently. Now it updated the numbers and it doesn't have failure to converge and such. Okay, we're at the end here. And our hydrolock stage. Well, we certainly will have more left over and enough to get ourselves on escape with this stage now. The downside to this arrangement, of course, is that we can't generate artificial gravity for the trip there, trip back, or while we're around Mars. And especially since the mission is sort of a short stay mission, that's a little bit sad. You know, because they're gonna be in the spaceship for a very long time. So that is the downside to this. The upside is they're Kerbals, so they'll be fine. They have small legs anyway, they're not gonna have any bone loss. But but for humans, well, I mean, trip there and trip back, you know, we've done stays on the space station for those kinds of lengths. But the big question is whether a long stay on the surface would help maintain the bones or not. That's something we just don't know. Whether 1/3 gravity is enough for our systems and will keep us reasonably strong if we do exercise on the surface, of course, or if we need more gravity than that. My hope is that 1/3 gravity is quite enough, as long as you do some exercises, maybe with some extra weights or something. So, yeah, wear a weighted suit is my preferred idea, but yeah, that we're not taking into consideration for now, especially since we're not staying on the surface for long enough to make that happen. In order to stay at the surface, we'll need another launch with a bigger base on the surface, that's it. Then the lander will have to land close to that base, and it'll be as simple as that. The base could be launched by something a little bit lighter than this rocket because it'll essentially be this HAB, but without the extra propellant and without the lander. So it doesn't need to be as powerful a rocket. Could be something like SLS, which is half the size of this rocket. So yeah, that would be the plan if we could use the gravity of Mars to maintain them properly. But we are not generating artificial gravity. We're assuming at least that for the 6 to 9 months there and 6 to 9 months back, they can deal with that part with some recovery time once they get to the relative surfaces. They will have to stay inside and try to recover after landing, of course. It will take some time and physical recuperation to get used to the gravity on Mars and then back on Earth. Okay, we have reached orbit, thanks to ascent guidance. Okay, 3,700, well, that's fine. Okay, ignition. We are not gonna go through the entire stage. As per the plan, we are boosting up and then waiting. So we'll have to see whether that's okay. But we have to wait so that crew that would be delivered to it can arrive. And then we will finish the burnout. Okay, I think I put us into a longer orbit than I was intending. We're basically moonish right now. But that would give them time, I suppose. I don't really want a 10-day... Let's just go. I don't want a 10-day orbit. I probably should have cut it a little bit earlier. I'm gonna take that much and assume that we would have lost the rest of it on boil off because we would have to wait. So, on to the ions. And I'm gonna replot, of course, because the ions are not going to be doing this instantaneously or anything. Well, if we could get that, that'll be good enough for now, but it's probably gonna cost like 2,000 actually. At least we've got a 5-day, 20-hour burn time. Off they go. I don't believe that this is really telling me how long it's gonna, how much delta V we're gonna need right now. Pretty sure it's not right. Never do ion engine burns to finish the transfer. It's just always horrible. Anywhere but Earth. Anywhere but Earth or Mercury. 1,200. Okay, well that's good enough. We have to do this 1,200 here. Alright, we have a Mars encounter. Alright, well, I could probably do with an inclination fix because we want to be in line with Phobos and Deimos generally. So, I will do that. Let's cut that. And it's not gonna cost a lot. Okay, yeah, like that, and then we can capture. Alright, let's do this. Let's see how bad boil off and supply stuff is. Let me save. Oh, we do need to turn on the recycler. Let's make sure to have the water recycler on. Much better. It's an ISS class water recycler based on a paper I read about the ISS water recycling system. It can do much better than 50%. I'm only asking it to have 50% efficiency. It's actually much more efficient than that. So we could have carried less water. If we actually had a water splitter, which we do not have right now, that extra water could have come in handy. Spare water might also be good as a radiation shield. Sort of envision radiation shielding at the very least their sleeping area by just having water around it. I mean, it's crude, but potentially effective. Depends how much water would be necessary for that, though. Okay, that's good enough for me. A little bit far out, but we'll probably correct that once we get over there. Oh, something weird happened there. So, to capture... probably keep it loose first. Something along those lines will be fine. So 1,300, and considering the delta V we have and the stage time, I'm thinking about 12 hours. So I could calculate that a little bit better. So we just have to start out, I'd probably start out 10-12 hours ahead. We've kept a lot of the hydrogen. We have had some boil off, but we're having boil off of all three propellants, the methane, oxygen, and hydrogen, but we've mostly kept them. Actually, now the methane and oxygen boil off has stopped. Hydrogen is still going, but when I started time warp at mid-course correction, they were boiling off. But not too badly. Those propellants would only be in the lander, of course. This stage here uses MMH and MON3 for the RCS. And then, of course, we've got the xenon gas. Oh, it's rebalancing the food, water, and oxygen here. Hopefully to nothing bad. Doesn't seem like it ought to be. We've been through nearly 9 months. Well, even though I thought I overdid the water, you know, because we were only expecting 50% recycling, even though the recyclers should do better, it's a little bit short. And you can see why the wastewater here hasn't been recycled. Now, it won't go like 2,552 units in addition to that. That would be wrong. Most of it is waste. And I guess it's because we have too much spare waste. Let's do a waste dump. There's Mars. Well, even after I dump the waste, I don't think it's going to recycle that wastewater. Gonna dump some of that just because it's heavy. It's like 2 tons of wastewater. Okay, dump complete. Alright. Slow down. Okay. Along the way we've brought our periapsis in. I don't know how much more we need to capture. Hopefully not too much. It looks like I should have started even earlier. As usual, it took more than expected to do the thing, but, you know, we'll go past a bit and I trust we'll capture eventually. Okay, come on, capture. Please. Okay, that's a weird capture. I don't even know which way around we're going right there. Okay. I think we're going around the wrong way compared to what I wanted. Yeah, we've got the wrong inclination. But you know what? For now, we're gonna take that. I'll just have to remember next time to plan ahead a little bit more. So that leaves us with 6,000 to get back and capture around Earth, but that's not with the lander, so we have more than 6,000 for that. But we're in a high orbit and we probably actually want to get this into a lower orbit first, so we have less than 6,000. Right. Well, we've captured, and I'm gonna continue this in a subsequent video because, well, there's a lot left to do, and we will see whether Jeb, Bill, Bob, and I swear Val must be on here because we've got 4 people, right? We've got 4 people. Why is it not showing the... Well, I don't want to remove slot. Well, somewhere around Val definitely is. But anyway, we are going to see how it goes. So far, so good. Though, yeah, there's a lot of variables, a lot of resources to track. Don't know how it's all going to go in the end. For now, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do press like. If you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below. And I'll see you next time.